Hello there. If you're interested in real estate, particularly in the Philadelphia suburbs, then you've come to the right place. And that's the right place for either side of the Delaware, both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Now, my goal as a realtor and an attorney is to provide you with the best, most up-to-date real estate information so that you can make informed decisions, so that you can buy houses cheaply, so that you can sell your houses with little to no stress. I'm here to serve your long-term goals and to provide you with the information necessary to feel comfortable with either buying your dream home or selling a house that has meant the world to you. As I said, I serve the Philadelphia suburbs. That includes the main line, Chester County, Bucks County, Montgomery County, everything in and around the Philly suburbs. But I also work on the other side of the Delaware, serving Camden County and towns like Cherry Hill, Morristown, Medford, Haddonfield, and all the way out to the shore, places like Avalon, Cape May, Sea Isle. Now, my goal with this channel and with my practice generally is to provide information to help people make one of the biggest financial decisions of their life. This shouldn't be a decision that someone just pushes you through, that someone tells you, look, I can get this done in 2 weeks, but then you end up having regret just 2 weeks after moving in. My hope is that you can take the information I provide you, or maybe one day we can work together and we can have you feeling safe and secure with the decision you made in terms of your buying or selling of real estate. Now, just as a little background, none of this is legal advice. Despite me being an attorney, none of you guys are my clients yet, but if you'd like to be, you can certainly reach out at the information provided below and we can start that process up. Now, I'm sure you're wondering who I am, except for the very nice people who I'm already friends with, who are probably most of the viewers at this point watching this. So who I am. My name's Eric Kelly. I'm a realtor and licensed attorney in Pennsylvania, and I'm also a licensed realtor in New Jersey. So I currently work at Keller Williams & Power, helping to serve home buyers and home sellers across the Philadelphia suburbs. I actually grew up in the area too. I was born and raised in Westchester, Pennsylvania, where I went to Unionville for a couple of years. I spent 10 amazing years in the Philly suburbs before I hit 5th grade when my parents moved just over the border into Wilmington, Delaware, where I then spent the next 8 years before I graduated from high school. It's an amazing place to grow up, and that's why my wife and I wanted to move back so that we could raise our kids in the area too. So my wife grew up in New Jersey, so we're covering both sides. And she grew up in the Princeton area. She wanted to be back closer to her parents and her family. We have a ton of family in downtown Philly as well. And it's the place we wanted to raise our kids. And right now we live up in Phoenixville, so we have the full swath of the PA burbs under our belt. I grew up going to Avalon, so we try and take our kids there as much as possible, see the grandparents, see the great-grandparents, which is crazy. But my family's in the area still, my wife's family's in the area still. We hope our kids will stay in the area in the future, but who knows where the world will take us at that point. But a little bit of background on my legal practice. So my wife and I actually met at Georgetown Law. We graduated in 2018. I don't know how they let me in there, but they did. After that, I practiced real estate at a law firm in DC for nearly a decade. My practice was focused on corporate litigation. So I helped to represent Fortune 500 companies across various spaces, including agrochemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, mass transit companies, including railroads. The full gamut of products liability litigation, and it was an extremely rewarding practice. I got to work with some amazing people. The subject matter was always interesting, and the stakes were high, which I enjoy. I like the pressure that comes with work like that. What I didn't enjoy as much, though, was a lack of seeing my work have any personal connection or really lack of being able to help any one individual. when representing companies, while if the outcome is good for a community, you're helping a lot of people, really the focus is on that company. I wanted a more individualistic focus, which is why the transition into real estate felt natural to me. You still get high stakes. This is the biggest decision a lot of people will ever make in their life, but you get to see individual happiness in a way that I just didn't see when I was working in big law. But I am able to use a lot of the lessons that big law taught me in my current real estate practice. A few of those lessons include, one, attention to detail. Now, my real estate practice pays attention to the small things that other agents who maybe they're just looking to get you to buy a house as fast as possible and move on to the next. Maybe they're hoping to just list your house. They don't really care what price. They're just trying to churn out commissions. That's not my practice. My focus is on making sure every little detail, whether that's the information you provide me so that I can set you up with the right homes to look for, whether that's the contracts that we're going to go through are filled out meticulously, whether that's in negotiation, paying attention to the smaller details like inspections, appraisals, making sure the right clauses are included or are not included in contracts, and even when we're touring homes, just making sure that every little detail is taken care of so that when it's going to be a lot of signatures, but that final signature on the dotted line, you feel comfortable and happy with the decision you've made. It's very important to me. Another thing big law taught me is how to navigate stress. When you're billing, which another reason why it's nice to be out of there, having to write down what you did every 6 minutes of the day for an entire day is not a thrilling part of the job, but it does help you pay attention to the details. Anyway, negotiation. I have taken and defended dozens of depositions. I've sat in on settlement conferences. I've helped with settlement conferences. I've been in court. I've argued points for major corporations. For you, negotiation matters because it can be the difference between wildly overpaying or finding the steal of a lifetime that makes you want to stay in your home forever. I will bring all of the negotiation tactics I learned at a law firm for nearly a decade and apply them to getting you in the house of your dreams or being able to sell your home in the way that you want to. My goal, and I can't guarantee it every time, but my goal is to have you not compromise in any way when you're working with me on a real estate transaction. I want you to feel as good as possible when you're making the decision to work with me. Now, as I said, my law firm was in Washington, D.C., and my wife and I moved back up into this area a few years ago, but I grew up in this area. This is what I consider home. I always have considered it home. So I talked about the general areas I've served, the main line, Chester County, Bucks County, and then over the Delaware into Cherry Hill, and then some of the shore as well. But let's talk about some specifics. Let's talk about the individual towns that I work in. So in the main line, you're looking at towns like Bryn Mawr, Ardmore, Wayne, mainline adjacent like Berwyn. These are beautiful places to live. They're fantastic. The schools are unbelievable. I mean, my wife and I just went on a date in Wayne. The restaurants are unbelievable. These towns are highly sought after, and it's one of the most competitive markets in the country. You need someone who not only understands those markets, but understands what it takes to succeed in those markets. Beyond that, there's also Chester County, the county in which I live right now, the county in which I grew up. These are lovely suburban towns. Now, whether you're trying to relocate, maybe you've lived in Philly for a long time and you just want a little more green in your life. Maybe you're coming down from New York and you just want a little more land in your life. Chester County is a beautiful place to look. And the same goes for Bucks County. My dad actually grew up in Bucks County. He played football back in the day for Central Bucks East. That being said, if you go to Central Bucks West, I'm still your guy. All that being said, I serve up and down the Philadelphia corridor in Pennsylvania. On the other side of the Delaware in New Jersey, I work in towns where I have more family that lives because everyone's in the Philly area, like Haddonfield, Medford, Morristown, Cherry Hill, All of these are towns that I know intimately. They're the towns I grew up in. They're the towns I played sports in. If you are looking at any of these towns, I am your guy. Now, just one more reiteration before we keep moving forward. If your goal is to have no regrets and to succeed based on long-term investment, whether that's personal, financial, or other, in your real estate decisions, I am your guy. I want to focus on the data, I want to focus on your outcomes, and I want to take care of the details so that when it comes to you choosing the house of your dreams, you feel 100% comfortable with the decision. Now, let's talk about the current state of the market a bit. And I have my iPad here because I do want to give you guys some stats. I'm hoping that I can just remember a bunch of these, but I want to be accurate, which is another point of my practice. I'm not just going to feed you answers so that you're happy with what I'm telling you in the moment, because that doesn't help you and it doesn't help me. I want to be the guy who tells you when is a good time to buy, when is a bad time to buy, based on your specific circumstances. I also want to tell you when to walk away from a home, when to walk away from a deal, or when this is the perfect time, this is the perfect home, this is the perfect contract setup for you to move forward and be happy for maybe a short amount of time, maybe happy with your investment, or maybe for the rest of your life. Those are my goals. So let's talk about the current state of the suburban Philly real estate market. And part of why I want to talk about this is because I think it's a stressful time for a lot of buyers and sellers. There's some uncertainty in the market right now. We've seen small shifts, but a lot of people don't know, is now the time I should list my house? Is now the time we should relocate? Is now the time we should move up? Is now the time we should scale back? So I hope this brief market update, and there'll be plenty to come across all of my platforms, which you can find again linked below. But now is a good time to just give you a 30,000 foot view on what I'm seeing in the market, and this hopefully helps you start your decision making process. And as always, if you have any questions during that decision making process, just reach out. So what we're seeing are three large umbrella shifts in the suburban real estate market. One, structural supply shortages. We're not seeing a ton of new development of homes. We're not seeing a ton of people listing their homes. So it is still, by definition, a seller's market. So let me step back here and describe the different states of the market. So you have generally in that 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 month worth of inventory range. That's what's called a balanced market. That's where both buyers and sellers have relatively equal power, and it's, I guess, what people would view as equilibrium in the market. Now, when you have 1 to 2 months of supply in the market, which is closer to where we are now, I'll get into some individual neighborhoods and communities later that differ slightly. But if you're in that 1 to 2 month range, it's a seller's market. The sellers have the power. There's not enough supply to drive that timeline up. Now, if you're north of 5 or north of 6 months of inventory, that's what we call a buyer's market. The buyers have the power. That's when all inspections are on the table. That's when you're not getting a ton of offers on each specific house, so the buyers can take a little more time in their decision-making process. Sellers may have to lower their prices. And I know what some of you are thinking. I've been looking on Zillow, I've been looking on Redfin, which I'll talk about those in a bit too, about some of their accuracy issues. But it looks like a lot of people are having to take their homes off the market who have listed and drop their price. Some of them by pretty dramatic figures. I've seen some being dropped by about 10%, which is a huge dump. But some of that is driven by a slightly changing market, but some of that is just due to, frankly, a lack of agent research, a lack of agent time spent. Pricing your home, if you're on the listing side of the real estate market, is probably the most crucial factor for you to see a good outcome. Now, competitive market or comparative market analyses are the best way to do that. But a lot of agents just find relatively similar homes. Maybe it fits your number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. Generally, it's within about 5 miles of where your home is now, not even looking at school districts, not looking at specific sub-neighborhoods, and then they put together the 5 most recent sales, perhaps, maybe 5 that had the drop, maybe 5 that are soon to close, and they give you, hey, this is the range, this is what I generally think it is, but really they spent 15 minutes, and now you're questioning whether that's where you should be listing your home or not. You came in with an idea, maybe it fits it, so you say, no problem. That is not, in my belief, the way that it should be done. What should happen is that you take as identical of homes as possible. Maybe that means fewer homes than in a typical market analysis, but you find dead ringers and you use that to perform your comparative market analysis. If you can't find these dead ringers, maybe you're in a more remote area of the Philadelphia suburbs, then we have to do adjustments based on the specific features. Maybe that's recent renovations, maybe you just put in a new garage door, which is as good as renovations get. It has, I think, the highest, or at least top 3 highest return on investment in terms of soon to list renovations. Maybe you just redid a master bathroom, maybe you finished your basement. All of these things need to be factored in when doing that competitive market or comparative market analysis. I promise this is one of those things that I do with the precision, care, and accuracy that I employed during my time at a law firm. I want you to feel as comfortable as possible with every step of work that I do on your behalf. So that was a little bit of an aside. Let's get back to the current state of the Philly market. The second big umbrella that we're seeing in the Philly suburbs right now is rate-driven buyer behavior. So rates have been moving a bit recently. I know, especially if you're looking to buy a home, you're probably keeping up almost daily with what the Fed is doing, with what the government is doing in terms of interacting with the Fed. And the current rates, especially if perhaps you bought a starter home in that pandemic window when rates were through the floor, and now you feel trapped. You feel like, I just can't let this go. I got such a good deal back then. I need the rates to come down. I'm simply not going to move up. I'm not going to change until I see better rates. Well, historically, despite the rates being significantly higher than they were 4 or 5 years ago, these are still decent rates. It's not like we're back decades ago when people were seeing 17%, because that's a nightmare. No one wants to deal with that. But these rates are workable. Moreover, if we were to talk and maybe we have some planning sessions, there's always refinancing. There's your current economic situation right now. There are a lot of factors that go into your buy time, not just the current rate. However, it is good to factor in the current rate, and we are seeing some buyer decisions being influenced by the current rate, which is why we're staying on that seller's market side of the range. But we are starting to see shifting demand patterns. My wife and I actually bought this home, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago now maybe. And at the time, in this competitive Philly suburban market, we basically could not get a single inspection if we wanted to be in that pile of offers that was even looked at by the seller. If you wanted, besides the obvious ones, if we were looking at houses before 1978, I'm not going to move into a house with my little kids and have lead in the walls. That's just a nightmare. But the smaller inspections that you think, I looked around, I don't see a lot of damage. Maybe you brought your father-in-law with you. He did contracting work back in the day. He tells you everything's fine. You didn't see any big cracks in the foundation of the unfinished basement. You didn't see any water damage. You think you're all right. Well, guess what? Those inspections are starting to be back on the table, if not are universally back on the table at this point. So that is good news in terms of the shift for buyers. We are starting to see that days on market climb a bit, which is also good news for buyers. It's going to make sellers want to lower prices a bit. It's going to have them maybe include some concessions in the contract, which is another point about negotiation, which is why that's always an important part and factor to consider when looking at who to work with. So we are seeing, as I referenced, a modestly slowing rate of sales. And this is why you start seeing some of those seller price drops. That's why you start seeing these days on market increase, and that's why buyers are feeling a little more power in the process right now. That being said, let's talk about some specific areas within Montgomery, Chester County. We're also looking out at Haddonfield, Medford. These, I hesitate to say because I love a lot of the suburbs. I love where I am now in Phoenixville. I'm going to go ahead and toot its horn. I think it might have the best suburban nightlife in the Philly suburbs. I obviously grew up in Westchester. I don't know if there's a better place to raise a family in the Philadelphia suburbs. But let's talk about these high demand neighborhoods. So we're talking dead center of the main line, including some main line adjacent places, Bryn Mawr, Haverford, Berwyn, Wayne, where we are not seeing as big of a shift back to the buyer side. We're still seeing somewhere in that range of 1 to 2 weeks on market. These are moving quickly. We're seeing very similar things in the most desirable sub areas in Medford, in Haddonfield. But where this does differentiate even a little further is the price band that you're in, or the specific price point that you are looking at. So in the upper end of what we typically see home buyers looking to spend, so the median in Philly plus the whole Philly metro area, I still think is just north of $400,000 in terms of price point. When you get out into these suburbs, if we're looking at the band just above that, so $500,000 to $900,000, we are still seeing a lot of seller power. What we're seeing is 1 to 2 weeks on the market. These homes are moving quickly. People are still not getting the inspections they want. We're still not seeing seller concessions. And that's what you think of in these desirable neighborhoods. That's why it's hard to move into these desirable neighborhoods. That being said, when you get up into the elite luxury band, so 1.5 million plus, then we are starting to see a little more buyer power in these neighborhoods. We are dealing with, frankly, makes sense, fewer people who can afford these homes, and therefore those who are selling are dealing with a smaller pool of buyers. They're very discerning, and so not every home that comes about is going to fit these people's, maybe it's you, their interests. So if you are in that 1.5 and north price range and you're looking to buy something in these quote-unquote elite Philadelphia suburbs, you might be in luck. You're starting to get some power back. So let's talk main takeaway from this huge broad sweep of the market. I'll have more videos coming, I'll have more posts coming about the specifics of each of these towns, of these submarkets, of maybe how being near certain roads will change your power, whether you're on that listing side or the buying side. But the overall message here is inventory is still tight. Sellers still have most of the power, but we are starting to see some shifts. It is not what it was in 2021, 2022, but the buyers are getting a little more power here. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any of these stats for you guys. Oh yes, so let's talk about some unique challenges from a listing side. If you have some, I mean, in your mind, I'm sure they are, and they probably are, minor cosmetic issues, or maybe you have a unique layout in your home, that's when the buyers are going to have a little more power in that interaction. We're starting to see enough volume come on in the more standard look housing, think Toll Brothers, but if you have a unique layout, maybe you have a unique property, maybe you just needed some upgrades, they're not going to happen, you need to move, maybe you got a new job, who knows what it is, you might have, as a lister, a little less power than your general market segment might indicate. So let's talk about the specifics of the days on market. So in the elite suburbs that I just mentioned, still very much a seller's market. 2 to 4 weeks is typical, so you're at that 1 month kind of on the high end, which is squarely in that seller's market that we talked about earlier. The norm for the general Philly suburban market, so the vast majority of Chester County, I think Delaware County, a lot of Montgomery County, a lot of Bucks County, there's some little pockets in Doylestown. It's just what pops in my mind. There's obviously pockets all over Bucks County that are in that 2 to 4 week kind of elite market range, but the typical across the Philly suburbs is 4 to 8 weeks right now. So we're pushing towards that top end of seller's market and working our way potentially, obviously the Fed's going to have some say in that over the course of 2026, towards a balanced market. Now let's talk, I talked briefly about price reductions. I've been seeing a lot of them. I'm sure if you're on Zillow and Redfin, you've been seeing a lot of them too. I'll step back in a second and talk about one of the reasons I believe they're happening, and I think it's Zillow and Redfin's, Homes.com, all of them, I think it's their fault. And then also walk away sellers, people who just said, look, now's not the time, I'm walking away. You're getting expired contracts for agents. I see it all the time. But let's talk about price reductions first. Price reductions seem to be cropping up. A lot of people, maybe it's a minor drop, maybe it's $5,000, maybe you just were working with an agent or priced it yourself. You maybe listed it at 805 when really you want to drop it down a little bit so that when people are searching on these various sites, when you're searching on the multiple listing service with an agent, so that it's popping up for more people. That is really a listing agent problem. That is not a home desirability problem. And you're probably not going to see a lot of walk-away sellers in that situation. It's just going to be like, let's do this minor price adjustment, get it back listed again, and you're probably going to see a bump in traffic just because you're getting more eyes on your home through these typical platforms. Now, stepping back for a second, these typical platforms, Zillow, Redfin, all of them, they are popular because they're easy to search, they're publicly available, and frankly, I know I did it when we first bought this home too, they make you feel good about your home value. How they create this figure about what your home is worth is generalized, to put it kindly. They look at the broadest version of the market that they're in. So, for example, I'm in Phoenixville right now. They're going to look at Chester County broadly. Maybe they're going to narrow it down to the northern half of Chester County. And then they're going to pump in, here's the number of bedrooms, here's the acreage, here's the number of bathrooms, here's how recently it was built. And then they spit out a number and they factor in a little bit of what has sold recently around you. That gives you a number that looks nice and it's going to be generally accurate. The problem is when you're buying and selling a home, you need to be specifically accurate. And part of the way you're specifically accurate is by looking as close as you can to comparable sales, to comparable listings, and to comparable closings. Now, this typically will bring your actual home value down just a bit, but it gets even more confusing for those who are looking to list their home. You typically, and this is my theory on listing, it is better to list much below what you believe your home is worth than much higher. If people think they're getting a deal, if they think they're walking to a home that's going to go for much less than they value the home, you're going to see traffic at your open houses increase, you're going to see online traffic increase, and you're going to see offer traffic increase. Now, what does that do? Basic economics drives the price up. Let's say you price it right at what your home's worth and you have 10 people come in and make offers. They're all going to be right around what your home's actually worth. Maybe 3 of them have escalation clauses that will bump it up a little bit, but you're not going to have a real bidding war. Let's say you price your home $20,000 less than what you believe it's worth. But that $20,000 less brings in double the number of offers. So now you're at 20 offers, you're at, let's say, 8 escalation clauses, and a few people who have said, this is my final and best, and they are in their mind trying to beat what they know is going to be a highly competitive situation. Now your home is $40,000 above what it's objectively worth, but you listed it $20,000 less than before that. And on the flip side, and where I think a lot of people get in trouble, whether that's because their agents just aren't talking them through this, they just don't know the background information on how real estate pricing may benefit them, which why would you? You're not a realtor. But if you price it, let's say $20,000 over, and you get one offer in, and it's below market because they know they're not competing with anyone. And so now you're on the market for 3-4 months, which is a nightmare. You were hoping that this was going to be in the range of the elite that I just described, maybe that 1 to 2 week, creeping up into that 4 to 8 week range. Now you're almost double that, and it's all because it was just a poor pricing decision. So that's stepping back from going through Redfin, Realtor.com, Zillow, all of that, and explaining my theory on home pricing. I think that's why we're starting to see price reductions. I think people were listing higher. I think that they were living in the world of 2020, 2021, 2022, where sellers had czar-like control of the market. And now everyone's coming back to reality. They're taking their homes off. They're maybe letting it reset for a season, a year even. And then they're coming back on, dropping their prices. And you're going to start to see a balancing out in terms of the power in the market. So again, high level 30,000 foot view. I'll provide much more information in weeks, months, years to come. But for sellers, the market still favors you in core segments. Accurate pricing, which I just talked about. The condition of your home, which most people tidy it up. We also do quite a bit of presentation prep, any small cosmetic repairs we can before getting your home listed to make sure that we're maximizing price for you, and presentation, all of these three things. So pricing, condition, presentation, which all extremely controllable, and that's my bread and butter. That's what's going to make the biggest difference for sellers right now as this market starts to shift away from you. For buyers, you have leverage selectively. Inspections are back on the table. You're getting a little more power. You have a little more time to make decisions, but negotiation is still crucial. My nearly a decade as an attorney was almost entirely focused in one way or another on negotiation. Whether I'm working with experts, negotiating how to get them to present their opinions, whether I'm dealing with a client, having them negotiate potentially a settlement figure, or whether we're just in court actually arguing a motion or getting prep for a trial. Everything at its core is negotiation. And the same thing goes for real estate when you're starting to make a difference. It's not hard to list your home $100,000 under what it's worth and get it sold. Anyone can sell a house. It's maximizing the transaction for yourself that's important. And that is literally all I do. Secondarily, for buyers, strong school districts, popular towns, expect competition, expect short transaction times and short times on market. That's not going to change, and it probably won't change even if rates are going to change, let's say, drastically in 26. So staying with buyers. I want to help every step of the way. So whether that's getting you pre-approved, which we do as early as possible, because let's say the first home that we look at together, you love, we want to make sure that you can get an offer in that day so that you are winning in these competitive markets. So pre-approval is first. Walking you through every step of the process. And that begins with giving you insight, like I just did, into the market. Then it gets into the details that are important to you. What information do I need to get you looking at the right homes, to structure the deal in a way that makes sense for you, to maximize your long-term profit, and to make sure that whether it's 1 week, 1 year, or 10 years down the line, you don't regret the decision you made to buy a home. Now, that gets us into the actual offer. There are a lot of ways to structure an offer. There are a lot of ways you can change an offer. And I promise I will lever every single one of these various strategies to make sure that you are submitting a competitive offer that not only competes but ideally wins in the houses that you care about. That includes escalation strategies, that includes appraisal and inspection tactics, legal structuring in the actual contract itself, trying to get and attempting to and winning concessions from the seller. Look, I'm an attorney. I love contracts. I love negotiating. Let me put it to work for you. I also want to be someone who pulls the reins back when I need to. Whether it's, let's say it's a bad electrical system in a home where you wouldn't necessarily know that, but you go to plug in, let's say like the recent winter storm we had, you need a space heater, you plug it in and short your whole system. Now you don't have power, the breaker's not getting it back running, and now you have someone coming out to your home, and I could have prevented that by just letting you know, look, this is not a 200 amp system. We need to look at a different house and make sure you and your family are protected. I also want to help let you know what is and is not important in a home based on your preferences, what is and is not important in a deal based on what your long-term and short-term goals are. I want you to be familiar with appraisal risks, with closing disclosures. My whole goal is no surprises. That's the key for you, and that's what hopefully builds trust in me. I want to let you know, as the fiduciary I was for the last decade basically, I want to let you know when a home is overpriced, when neighborhoods carry hidden risks, and when a deal does not make financial sense. I want to work for you. Now, back on the seller side. I talked about this a little bit with pricing already, but beyond pricing, there's positioning and negotiation. Like with buyers, we always start with the market. What homes are selling around you recently? What are currently on the market now? What are you competing with? How can we make your listing stand out above the rest? And there's a few ways to do that. The first and most obvious, price point, like we just talked about. My theory is you get the market to do the work for you. Come in a little low, drive interest, drive exposure, and then let the buyers come in and bid against themselves until you are making the profit that you deserve off of your sale. Beyond that, we want to know about any price reductions in your general area. And that might mean, if we're seeing a lot of those, that maybe my advice to you is, look, we need to wait a month, we need to wait a season, we maybe need to wait a year before we get this house sold so that I can maximize your profit and you can maximize your comfort with the deal. And like I said, I'm sure if you're looking for homes, you've looked at Zillow, you've looked at Redfin, and you have a price in mind. It's a great price. I want to get you that price or higher. It's just the manner in which we do it that I have some opinions on. Beyond pricing and launch strategy, there are a few other things. One is presentation. We want to get your home looking beautiful. We want to get your home set up for open houses. We want buyers to be able to come in and be able to see themselves in your home. We have various vendors that we work with that can help do this. I'm experienced in this as well. And that includes cleaning, staging, photography, and then this gets into the marketing side, getting videos put together, leveraging my various social media platforms, which, shameless plug, you can again find below. We can get drones involved, always a fun time to get a drone up there and make your house look beautiful, get a view of the land, especially in these stunning suburbs. And then finally, we get into the nitty-gritty, dealing with the contract itself and everything that comes with it, dealing with which buyers are approved, dealing with appraisals, dealing with inspections, dealing with specific clauses in the contract for sale. I want to protect you from unnecessary concessions, unnecessary delays, and unnecessary financial hardship. So let's talk a little bit, and I know I've been hammering it, but my legal differentiation. A lot of real estate agents are focused on two things. One, maximizing price for them so that their commission is maximized, and maximizing the total number of deals. They want to get you either into or out of your home at a price that's good enough for them so that they can move on as quickly as possible to the next. They don't have a particular interest in contracts. They don't have a particular interest in negotiation. They view you as just a stepping stone to their ultimate goal. Myself, I went to school for years. I spent money to learn about contracts, to learn about negotiations, and then used it in practice at a law firm back down in DC for years. I find it extremely interesting work. I find it to be rewarding work. And now being able to couple that with the interpersonal engagement that I find as a realtor, I get the best of both worlds. I get to interact with people who get to buy their first home for their family. I get to help people navigate maybe finding a little bit less land so that they can be comfortable as they get to maybe see the next generation of their family come along. Whatever it may be, I'm excited to help you in both the nitty-gritty details of the contract, but also you as a human. Now, just in terms of the stakes we're talking about, for my work at the law firm, the stakes were everything. We're dealing with multinational corporations, multiple players on the Fortune 500 list, big time stakes. I mean, at some points, billions of dollars, certainly tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars were on the line, and I like that pressure. Now, while it's not typically tens of millions of dollars on the line in real estate transactions, certainly still millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. And for an individual, this is going to be the biggest financial decision of your life. I want to take what I've learned representing these huge corporations and apply it to your individual situation. I want you to rest easy knowing that you have someone fighting for you at every stage of your real estate process. Now let's talk generally about what this channel and what I will cover across all of my social media platforms, across my website as well. I want first and foremost to provide useful, relevant, timely, and helpful information to those maybe soon to enter a real estate transaction, maybe curious about real estate personally, or if you just love, like I do, looking at Zillow and finding out, oh my God, I should be moving to Idaho because look at all the land I can get. I want to provide all of you with that information that makes you feel more comfortable, that keeps you engaged, and that hopefully helps you with your next few real estate transactions. Again, my focus is on the Philadelphia suburbs on both sides of the Delaware. Chester County, the main line, Bucks County, Camden County, and then all the way down to the shore. If that is where you are interested in either buying or selling real estate, this channel is for you. I may be the agent for you. Maybe I'm the attorney for you. Please let me know. I hope it will make this channel fun. I really enjoy this. It makes me happy to do this. It makes me happy helping people. I like to joke despite me being a lawyer. And I want to help you as well. I want you to know that you are getting good, high quality information from a trusted source, so that even if you are working with someone else, which God forbid you should be working with me, but even if you are working with someone else, at least you have someone to bounce ideas off of. You can go look up whatever topic you may be interested in or maybe questioning your agent about, and you can say, well, I've heard differently and this is how he explained it. I want you to have the power to get what you need to out of your real estate transactions. I want to give you info on market conditions generally. I want to give you information on market conditions in these specific areas you may be looking or you may be living right now. I want to give you information on schools. How do school districts affect what I might be paying? How do school districts affect how I might price my home? On taxes. Obviously, New Jersey has a very unique tax system. I will dive into all of that and more, I promise. Let's also talk about commutes. My wife commutes into Philadelphia. It was a big point for us when we were buying our home. I now commute to Philadelphia occasionally as well. It's important to know everything about the lifestyle you are going to be getting into when you find your new home. Now let's talk about transaction specifics that this video may cover, or that rather this channel that I may cover. Loans, approval, offers, appraisals, inspections, closing, all the way down to, do I need to leave the garage door opener? Where do I find the garage door opener? I want to give you the level of detail that makes you feel comfortable either buying or selling your next home. Beyond that, if you're just interested in the investment side of real estate, as am I, we will talk about fixer-uppers, flips, renovations, and pure real estate investment. This is some of the most interesting work I think I will cover. I find it extremely fascinating, especially in this market, especially down at the shore, where people are planning for long-term generational wealth building. But this is also specific to the Philly downtown. There's a lot of areas in downtown Philly that are ripe for investment opportunities. This channel will cover that as well. And then also the super fun side, legal stuff. I will provide legal insights on this. None of this is legal advice. None of this is specific to your actual situation, but I will give you a lay of the land of how the law will affect your real estate transaction, as fun as that may sound. Now, again, my name is Eric Kelly. I'm a realtor and attorney for the Philadelphia suburbs. I work all across both sides of the Delaware, and I want to help you find the home of your dreams. I want to maximize your profit selling, and most importantly, I want to provide you with as much information on the real estate decisions in your life as possible. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.